Nietzsche thought you were a slave, not to some external master, but to your own moral convictions. And he was probably right. You wake up every morning and perform the same ritual of self imprisonment. You go to work not because you want to, but because it's the right thing to do. You sacrifice your desires because sacrifice is noble. You follow rules that someone else made for reasons you've never questioned. This is what Nietzsche called slave morality, and it's everywhere. Nietzsche divided morality into two types: master morality and slave morality. Master morality comes from strength, creativity, and self determination. It's the morality of people who create their own values based on what enhances life and power. Slave morality comes from weakness, resentment, and conformity. It's the morality of people who accept values imposed on them by others. Guess which one you've been living by your entire life? Christianity, according to Nietzsche, was the ultimate triumph of slave morality. It took everything that made humans strong: pride, ambition, self assertion, the will to power, and declared them sinful. Instead, it elevated weakness as virtue, humility, self denial, turning the other cheek. Blessed are the meek. This wasn't an accident. It was a brilliant psychological trick pulled by the weak to control the strong. If you can convince someone that their strength is evil, you've neutered them without lifting a finger. But Christianity is just the beginning. Modern society has perfected this system. We've created an entire culture based on slave morality, and we call it progress. Think about the modern workplace. You're expected to be grateful for a job that drains your soul. You're supposed to find fulfillment in making someone else rich. The idea that you might want more, that you might deserve better, that you might have the audacity to prioritize your own happiness. These thoughts are quickly labeled as selfish, ungrateful, or unrealistic. Hard work has become a moral imperative, not hard work toward your own goals, not creative labor that expresses your individuality, but hard work as submission, grinding away at meaningless tasks because suffering builds character, because struggle is virtuous, because that's what good people do. This is the cage Nietzsche saw, a cage made of shoulds and supposed tos, a cage that convinces you that your own desires are suspect, that your natural instincts are dangerous, that the path to goodness lies through self denial and conformity. The most insidious part? The cage is invisible. You can't see the bars because they're made of values you've internalized. Every time you choose duty over desire, every time you suppress your authentic self for the sake of social approval, every time you mistake exhaustion for virtue, you're reinforcing the walls of your own prison. Nietzsche called this the death of God, not because he wanted to kill religion, but because he saw that the old moral systems were already dead. They no longer served life. They had become life denying rather than life affirming. And yet we kept following them like zombies, going through the motions of a morality that had lost all meaning. But here's where it gets interesting. Nietzsche didn't just tear down the old system. He offered something else: the concept of the Übermensch, the Overman. Not a superhuman in the comic book sense, but a human who has overcome the need for external moral validation, someone who creates their own values based on what enhances their life and authentic nature. This isn't about becoming a sociopath. It's about becoming responsible for your own moral framework instead of passively accepting someone else's. It's about asking yourself, What values actually serve my flourishing as a human being? What rules enhance my creativity, my relationships, my sense of purpose? What beliefs help me become more fully myself rather than a pale imitation of what others expect me to be? The Übermensch doesn't reject all morality, they reject inherited morality. They take responsibility for creating new values that serve life rather than diminish it. They become their own moral authority. Think about what this means for your daily existence. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" you start asking, "What do I will to do?" Instead of, "What's expected of me?" you ask, "What's authentic to me?" Instead of, "What's the right thing?" you ask, "What's the life affirming thing?" This is terrifying for most people. Taking responsibility for your own values means you can't blame anyone else when things go wrong. You can't hide behind, "I was just following orders," or "That's what society expects." You become fully accountable for your choices, but it's also liberating in a way that's hard to describe. When you stop seeking approval from external authorities, whether that's God, society, your parents, your boss, or your peers, you finally become free to discover who you actually are underneath all those layers of imposed expectations. Nietzsche saw that most people would never make this leap. They're too comfortable in their cages. The bars might be confining, but they're also familiar. It's easier to follow a predetermined moral script than to write your own. It's safer to let others define good and evil than to take responsibility for creating your own meaning. But for those willing to break free, Nietzsche offered a different vision of human possibility, a life lived not according to ancient rules or social pressures, but according to your own authentic nature, a morality based not on self denial, but on self creation, an existence focused not on following the herd, but on becoming who you actually are. The question isn't whether Nietzsche was right about everything. The question is whether you're brave enough to examine the cage you've been living in, whether you're willing to question the moral assumptions that have been guiding your life, whether you have the courage to step outside the safety of inherited values and create something new. Most people won't. They'll keep going to jobs they hate because it's responsible. They'll keep sacrificing their authentic desires because it's noble. They'll keep following rules that make them miserable because it's what good people do. But some people will hear this and recognize the truth in it. They'll see that their exhaustion isn't virtue, their conformity isn't goodness, their self denial isn't spirituality. They'll realize they've been imprisoned by their own moral convictions, and maybe, just maybe, they'll decide to break free. That's the real challenge Nietzsche presents. Not whether you agree with his philosophy, but whether you're living your own life or someone else's version of what your life should be. Whether you're creating your own values or passively accepting the ones that were handed to you. The cage is real. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Nietzsche, and why moral hard work is a cage.